For a long time, BMW have been considered the class leaders in the adventure bike market. But as far as I'm concerned, they've only ever made one real dirt bike. It was this, the BMW G450 X. Today we're going to ride it, we're going to review it, we're going to see how it performs, and of course we'll compare it to a modern enduro weapon, the most popular enduro bike of today, a Husqvarna 300 two-stroke. Let's do it. The BMW GS is considered by many to be the machine that pretty much created the adventure touring market. And since Charlie Boorman and Ewan McGregor toured the world on board these bikes in 2004 for their show The Long Way Round, the BMW GS has boomed in popularity. The bike has become by far BMW's most popular motorcycle and has regularly held the title as the UK's biggest selling bike. But as I said in the intro, in my opinion, the GS certainly isn't a real dirt bike. And in 2007, BMW realised this as well, and they decided to jump headfirst into the off-road world to try and capture a younger audience and rider. After all, the GS bikes were commonly regarded as the distinguished gentleman's off-roader. BMW wanted to come along and challenge KTM as the top dogs in the European motorcycle market. The result was this, the G450 X, and it really wasn't very successful, both in terms of performance and sales. It was only produced for 2 years between 2008 and 2010 before BMW decided to change their off-road tactics. But we'll get to the fallout of this project a little later in the video. But that does mean that you don't come across these bikes very often. They're weird bikes with some very odd concepts, which is obviously why I'm so interested in them. And when we found this example for sale online, we just had to snap it up. It was a true barn find when we got hold of it. It had been sat in a shed pretty much unused for the last 10 years. It's barely got any miles on it, but it certainly needed a good clean and freshen up. Thankfully, our awesome sponsors Putoline have a whole range of products to help us get the bike looking almost brand new once again. Putoline are massive supporters of the channel, and without their help we just couldn't make videos like this one. There are links and more info on Putoline in the description down below. As always, a big thank you goes out to Putoline. And now that the bike is looking fresh once again, it's time to head to the track and find out just how weird this machine really is. So in all of their German wisdom, BMW decided to try and reinvent the wheel when they started this BMW G450 X project. It's a weird bike if you compare it to a conventional motocross or enduro bike. For starters, fuel tanks here underneath the seat at the back of the bike. At the front, you've got the intake for the air box. And to make room for that, they've tilted the engine 30 degrees forward. So that's like the opposite to what Yamaha did a few years later with their YZ450. The G450X doesn't utilise a regular cradle frame. Instead, we see this bridge-type main frame with stainless steel tubing. It's said that the bike was designed to be lighter and more compact than its rivals. But who those rivals actually were is unclear to me. The G450X was conceptualised to be both an enduro machine and a dual sport bike at the same time. But with a narrow seat that became uncomfortable on long rides, a small fuel tank, a small headlights, and no wind protection to speak of, the BMW G450X wasn't all that successful as a dual sport machine. But how good was it as an enduro bike? We'll find that out as soon as I've finished running through some of the strange ideas and quirky features on display here. As I mentioned, the motor was tilted forwards to make space for the airbox and intakes. That motor was built in Taiwan by a trusted partner of BMW and was a 449cc single-cylinder 4-stroke motor with double overhead camshafts and a balance shaft. The bike has a closed-loop fuel injection system, which is a system more commonly used on road bikes. The internals of the motor operate very strangely as well. The crankshaft actually rotates backwards because of the way in which the clutch operates. This backwards rotation is said to have had a very weird effect on the gyroscopics of the bike, particularly in the air. As I mentioned, the clutch setup was very strange. The clutch basket on the G450 actually drives the 5-speed gearbox. The plates are way smaller than normal and the whole thing spins way faster than a conventional setup. Maybe the weirdest and most notable design feature is the coaxial traction system. As you can see, the front sprocket is located at the same rotational axis as the swing arm pivot. This is supposed to mean that the drivetrain runs with minimal slack and considerably reduces stress on the gearbox. The bike has 45mm Marzocchi forks and a special Öhlins shock at the back to suit that bizarre back end. And because this bike was sold as both a dual sport bike and an enduro bike, it had to leave the showroom as a road legal machine, meeting whatever emission standards were relevant at the time. So as standard, the bike came with a stock pipe and a road legal map that limited it to 40 horsepower. But for enduro riders, the machine was also sold with an Akrapovic pipe and a competition map ready to be installed that would take the machine to 50 horsepower. So as you can see, BMW certainly came into the dirt bike world with their own ideas on how things should be. Now let's see if those ideas worked in action.
Okay, so I'm on board the BMW G450 X in its natural habitat, no less. Oh, where did the track go? This environment is what this bike was designed for. It was sold or marketed as both a dual sport road bike and an enduro competition enduro machine. You know what? It's performing admirably at the moment. It's a weird machine, so I've touched upon already some very weird design features that we'll go into more detail about once Sean's had a ride as well. And we'll compare it to a Husky 300 also. A modern enduro machine, the most popular, we reckon, a bit slidey, enduro machine in the market today. But one of the strange things that BMW decided to do in all their wisdom of the motorcycle world, they just kind of sold the bike with the normal warranty that they sold their GS machines. Yes, so BMW sold this bike with the same level of warranty that they give to their normal road bikes, which is this is in America by the way, a 3-year warranty or 36,000 miles covered your warranty. So that's like insane for a competition dirt bike. You break something in the first 3 years, you can go and take it back and get it fixed. Mental. Fuel tanks at the back, so it feels quite narrow and nimble at the front, but it's got an arse like Kim Kardashian, big old booty on this thing because the fuel tank's at the back there underneath the seat, so it's a little bit strange handling wise and it turns. You feel nimble at the front, but then you've got to remember you've got a wide load at the rear.
I don't think that the legacy of the G450 X is going to be something that BMW are all that proud of. At the start of 2009, BMW signed multi-time world champion David Knight to race the G450 X in the 2009 World Enduro Championships. But things didn't go very well whatsoever. By the midpoint of the season, Knight was that frustrated with the machine that he was forced to split ways with BMW entirely. This is a quote from David talking about his time with BMW. Testing went well and we had good people on the team. But when it came to racing, it was a complete disaster. We thought we could turn it around, and I thought I was there to develop the bike, to turn it into a winner. But when it came to the crunch, we weren't allowed to do anything, and it had to stay virtually identical to the production bike. The guy who designed it wouldn't admit that it was no good as a race bike at the level we were at. Quite fairly, the G450 X was considered a radical machine by the general off-road population, and BMW really struggled to entice enduro riders to buy the bike. So inevitably, the machine was discontinued in 2010. But BMW continued to push the technology which they had developed onto the Husqvarna bikes, which they also owned at the time. Now this is a weird little footnote in this story. Around the same time that they unveiled the G450 X, BMW also announced that they had just acquired Husqvarna from MV Agusta for a reported 93 million euros. It seems strange that BMW would spend so much money developing their own off-road bike whilst they had a dirt bike brand like Husqvarna under the umbrella already. But BMW had done stuff like this before in the car world, and the thought was that Husqvarna would become like the Mini Cooper to the BMW in the motorcycle sector. The Husqvarna bikes and the BMW bikes were developed completely independently, and at the time the Husqvarna machines were produced in Italy rather than Germany. In 2013, BMW were apparently tired of trying to make an impact in the off-road world. So they sold Husky to the KTM group, which reunited Husqvarna with Husqvarna and essentially ended the need for the Husqvarna brand. This link with Husqvarna is the reason that we've decided to use a TE300 two-stroke as the bike to compare the BMW against. So let's get Sean on board and let's get this shootout underway. So we've got a nice little enduro loop set up for our shootout here today. And hitting the circuit first will be the Husqvarna TE300. Here comes Sean then, he's about to cross the line to set the stopwatch going. And just listen to the glorious tones of that two-stroke. This bike actually belongs to Lee Smith, no relation to Sean. Lee's a great friend of the channel. This is his Husqvarna 300 two-stroke that we're using here for this shootout. And Sean enters the woods for the first time on the two-stroke. Weaving his way through, dodging the branches. Got a tight little right-hander here. Back on the gas. Sean spends most of his time these days racing motocross, but he does have a background in enduro. That's where his dirt bike life really began, was riding in the woods. A little log jump here. Bopping and weaving through the woods. So far so good on board the Husqvarna 300. A nice long hairpin here. Nice long rut on the inside and into some deep stuff. Oh, that bike sounds good here, echoing through the woods, echoing through the forest. Now we're coming towards the end of the wood section with a long left-hander here that sweeps round. We've got some tight S-bends. And you can see the open space here. Sean's about to pop out onto the field and drop the hammer. Onto the field then, and Sean can really stretch the legs on this Husqvarna 300 two-stroke. He can really open things up, get the speeds high, see what the bike is made of. Just a handful of corners left for Sean then. It's slick down here in this turn, near the woods, but back on the gas, get some grip into the penultimate turn. One more corner to go for Sean. Here he goes, it's a tight, difficult one, slippy as well.
back on the gas, and he crosses the line. Now it's the turn of the Beamer, the BMW. We had some starting issues on the day, so we had to use a unique technique to get the BMW fired into life. But here she goes. Sean on board the G450 X. The moment of truth for the BMW. The clock is on. So Sean goes diving into the woods then on the BMW. Pay close attention, guys. Compare what you're watching now to what you've just seen with Sean on board the Husqvarna. Let me know your guesses in the comments down below. How different do you think these lap times are going to be after watching Sean on both of the bikes here? So we've got a tight right-hand hairpin here. Difficult corner for the BMW. Back on the gas though. Another left-hand hairpin on the gas, back towards the log jump. Over he goes. Into the big, long right-hander hairpin. Sean hanging it all out there on board the BMW. That's what we like to see. And now in this section of the woods, things start to tighten up. The trees come in closer, and we've got a few tight S-bends for Sean to manoeuvre on the big BMW. So how is the bike going to handle this section of the track? And now coming towards the end of the woods, we're about to find out what the BMW can do in the wide open spaces. How fast is it really? Sean pops out of the woods. Here we go, on the gas, stretching the legs of the BMW. So can the BMW make up some time in the open spaces here, in the open field, or is the damage already done? Like I said, Sean's hanging it all out there, giving it everything on board the BMW. Just 3 more corners left to go. Into the penultimate turn and on the gas. There's just 1 corner left in this race now. 1 more corner to go for the BMW. Here he comes on the gas. Wheel spinning and across the line. So without too much drama, the Beamer has survived a day of action here at the track, or the enduro loop that we've got here today. Just give us your quick rundown review of the Beamer, Sean. I've not even heard your review of this yet. I was over there when you came in, so what did you think?
Oh, shocking.
Really? Yeah, you didn't like it?
Yeah, shocking. Fair play to BMW for having a go. Do you know what I mean? That's all I can say. And a massive fair play to David Knight for riding.
Tried to race it, yeah.
Because it is a dual sport bike, so you can actually tell when you ride it is dual sport bike. You know, they did actually make it for that reason. So it's something you could buy and then, you know,
ride on the road.
Yeah, ride on the road legal, and then, you know, here's a pipe and an upgrade on the ECU, I believe, and there, go and race it. But it does feel like a dual sport bike.
So let's talk about some of the weird features, right? And how they affected the ride. Let's talk about that long swing arm. The way that it's set down there with the pivot is in a strange place, isn't it?
Yeah, massively strange. I mean, you can't really see it because it's actually full of mud, but behind there is the sprocket, the front sprocket, and the pivot bolt for the swing arm actually goes through the front sprocket, through the shaft, and out the other side, and that's how it's bolted to the engine.
Unique idea. I've never seen that.
Massively unique, yeah. The whole idea is, you know, the chain would, you'd adjust it once and then it wouldn't stretch, I guess.
Yeah,
you know,
that's the idea. That it's always tensioned correctly.
And you won't get it affecting with the suspension or anything like that. But on the downside, changing the front sprocket, you've got to take the swing arm out. So yeah,
it's not. I don't think that was designed with trackside maintenance in mind, was it?
No, not at all. I think that's more, again, dual sport
And it's just massive at the back, isn't it? Because that long swing arm, the mudguard's huge.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Obviously the tank's at the back as well.
Yeah. But with it being that long, it wasn't hard to turn. I didn't find it hard to turn. It wasn't agile.
I think it's deceiving because at the front, because the fuel tank's not here, it does feel quite narrow at the front. Like the waist is narrow, but the boot is massive, right? So I think it is deceiving how agile or nimble it feels because it is narrow at the front. But when you're especially in the tight trees, I was watching you and you're coming out and it just didn't, the back end didn't want to like swing round.
I think that's more suspension. Like I say, we haven't touched it, have we? It's literally barn find and you've gone, you know, let's go and
cleaned it and
yeah,
had a
make
ride.
a video. But I think a lot of that's suspension because when you're on the Husky, it's plush as anything, and when you hit the, you know, the twigs and the logs and the roots and everything like that, it was effortless. Where that you had to proper hold on because you didn't know what direction it was going to put you in.
I feel like you was going through things more than kind of hopping around.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Let's talk about the clutch setup and the crank. It's all weird in there,
right?
It's
very weird. Yeah. The way they've done the clutch is again unique. I don't think it's on any other bike.
I've not heard of it before.
So the hub bolts straight onto the end of the crank. So it's got splines on the end of the crankshaft, hub bolts straight onto it, then obviously you've got the basket. So then the basket then runs the gearbox in a, you know, conventional way. It would be, you'd have a gear on the end of the crank that ran the basket, and then the basket ran the gearbox, you know, with the hub and the clutch operating in the middle. So this clutch spins at the same RPM as the engine.
Yeah, I think it's 3 times quicker than a conventional.
Yeah, it would be, yeah, because it's direct. They reckon the clutch is amazing.
Yeah, more like a hydraulic clutch.
Yeah, and we didn't suffer any clutch fade or anything like that, and they do say that, and I think it's because it spins that fast that it's able to displace the heat, or the oils, you know, maybe displaces the heat better. There must be some
reason
logic,
why,
you know, in the reason.
So that's one of a good idea that BMW come up with.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And we had to take the rads off and check the air filter at one point today, and it's a weird setup, right? Like a tray that pulls out. Yeah. Did you like that design, or did you not like that design?
To be honest, I thought it was pretty good, you know, because you just take off the side panel and you've got 2 clips and the air filter just slides out, and it's very accessible.
Power-wise, power delivery, what did you think? We're not sure whether this is
no, we don't know if it's
full beans or it's had
yeah.
its nuts cut off. We not sure on that. What did you think?
I would imagine, I think...
obviously it's got the standard pipe on it.
Yeah, but they say stock it's 40 horsepower, isn't it? And I think that's more than, riding it, it was more than 40 horsepower, definitely. I know what 40 horsepower feels like, and that certainly had plenty of oomph, you know, through the gears.
I thought power delivery felt nice though.
It was great off the bottom, very usable, you know, real usable. And then it revved, but its rev was very linear. There was no spike in the power or anything like that. It was just flat and it revved.
So Sean, you did some laps on Lee's 300cc 2-stroke Husqvarna.
Yeah, that's a 22.
When you jumped from that first onto this, what were your first thoughts?
I wanted to get off it.
Get off this?
Yeah, I wanted to get off it. I was spoilt by riding, you know, the Husqvarna first, and then getting on that because that thing was effortless.
Yeah.
You know, through the woods and everything. And then you jumped on this, and I thought, oh no.
Crap.
might die.
Feels a bit like a tank, doesn't it? Go through those woods.
I mean, it is literally jumping off something like that, which is a, you know, a full-blown enduro bike. Getting on this again, like I say, it was like jumping on a dual sport 701 Husky, anything like that. Gas that you tried. That's exactly what that felt like.
Let's have a look at lap times then. I've got the results in my pocket. You don't know yet. Leave your guesses in the comments below. You've seen Sean in action on both bikes. What do you think the difference is going to be between the Beamer and the Husky? Okay, we'll start with the 300. Round our little course we set up here. A nice mix, right?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Some open space here on the field, some tight stuff in the woods.
Yeah.
The natural habitat, we think, for both bikes.
Yeah.
But on the 300, your lap time was a 2:06.19. And then on this, you had plenty of time to get used to this, and no excuses really for Sean. It was a bit cold, but...
yeah, it was, it was cold.
What's your guess?
I would imagine I would be probably... I'm going to say 3. I'm going to be nice and say about 3 seconds a lap slower on this.
Right, so it's a 2:06.19 to beat. Time on the Beamer, the mighty BMW 2:13.56. It's quite a lot of time per lap.
That's a bit, yeah, cool, dear, isn't it?
No
That's
wonder
more than 3
David
seconds.
Knight quit halfway through this season.
Bloke.
Where do you think you lost the time?
Everywhere.
Do you think when it was stretching its legs, it's just not as fast, and then not as nimble in the woods as well, and it just all adds up?
To be honest, I didn't feel that bad on it, but look, the lap times are like, you know,
that's a lot.
That's a lot. You know, I'll go back to that dual sport thing. It feels like a roadie dual sport bike that then you're trying to take off road, and that's what it felt like.
Yeah, I suppose if you were a road bike rider and you wanted to do some off-road, this would be a weapon,
this would be perfect. This would be perfect for like going off, doing a bit of green laning, you know, and riding around. All right, okay, it's got a small fuel tank, but it would last.
I'd much rather ride this on a real green lane than a BMW GS.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
In that regard, it's a good dirt bike, but compared to an actual legit, for real competition enduro / motocross bike, it can't. Yeah, it doesn't hold a candle up, does it?
I wouldn't say it's light and it's agile, but it's more light and agile than what, you know,
a GS is going to be.
Yeah. So
obviously BMW tried to jump into the dirt bike sector 15 odd years ago to capture that kind of young audience. That's why they did it, I've read, and apparently that's why the likes of Ducati and Triumph are doing it now, to try and capture a younger audience.
Yeah, with Ducati and Triumph doing it, I reckon BMW should have another crack at it.
It seems like a Triumph especially, they haven't tried to reinvent the wheel jumping into the sport.
Not at all, no.
So maybe if BMW do it again, they come with some more conventional concepts and maybe one unique idea, not a load. Let us know in the comments, would you like to see BMW have another crack at it and join the party here in the mud? I think I would.
So would I.
Right, as always, Sean, thanks very much for sending it for us today. Lee, absolute legend, mate, thank you for lending us the bike today. As always, my name's Max, you've been watching 999 Laser. Till next time, we'll see you at the track.